Okay, so Rachel Dolezal. If you don't know what's going on, which I can't imagine unless you've been living under a rock, there's this lady called Rachel Dolezal who was the president of the Spokane, Washington chapter of the NAACP, among other things. She's well known in her community, and as far as I can tell, she's done a lot of good work for her community. The weird part is, as far as anyone knew, she was a black woman, or at least part black. But it's basically been revealed that she's actually a white woman with 2 white parents, and maybe she has some kind of African ancestry, but as far as anyone can tell, she's like thoroughly white. And it appears that she just decided that she was gonna live as a black lady, or she wanted to be black, or she wanted to fool people into thinking she was black, something. And she got like real deep with it. Like, she was making posts on social media from the perspective of a black woman. She even like took pictures with this old black guy and told everybody that it was her father. Like, to me, that it's just really crazy. I don't even know what's going on. But anyway, as bizarre as that all is, what I really want to talk about in this video is the response to Rachel Dolezal. After people heard about this white lady that was living as a black lady, you started seeing hashtags on Twitter and other places like hashtag transracial, which apparently implies that a person can be born with the wrong skin color, or that you can feel like a certain race even if you don't look like that race. But so here's the problem with that. Race isn't a thing. You can't feel like a race. That's literally incoherent. It's like if you were born and raised in America, but you were like, you know what, I feel like an Australian. A statement like that would only make sense if Australianness was like a thing, but it isn't, and neither is blackness or race in general. There's no genetic or biological significance to race. There's no objective definition of what it is. It's like not actually a real thing. So if we say like white or black, like there's no fixed definition of what any of those words mean. It relies completely on context. How you feel doesn't matter when it comes to your race. Say you identify as a Latino, but you have really dark skin. If you happen to be a suspect in a crime, you know what they're gonna say? Yeah, suspect is a black male. If you have lily white skin and a pure Irish heritage, but your name happens to be Shanice or Andre, you're still less likely to be called back when an employer reads your resume. It doesn't matter what you feel like. Middle Eastern Arabs and Jews usually consider themselves a separate race, but people from different regions probably couldn't make a physical distinction between the two groups, because race isn't a thing. It's completely dependent on context. You can't feel like a race. Your race is not determined by how you feel. There are no characteristics, behaviors, traits, or roles that can be coherently tied to any race, because race isn't a thing. Physical characteristics, especially skin color, are literally the only thing we use to define race. But that's a terrible, inefficient, useless way to categorize people. Now, of course, the idea of race, and that's what it is, an idea, has some correlation to culture, and a cultural identity is something you can feel. But this has nothing to do with how you look. You might dress a certain way or talk a certain way, but those things are directly associated with culture. Your skin color or the natural texture of your hair are things you don't pick. They aren't outfits. They're not a lifestyle choice. So the obvious question that will always come up is, if people can't be transracial, then how can they be transgender? It's the same thing, right? No. It's very simple. You see, unlike race, gender is actually a thing. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the things we think about when we talk about gender and gender roles are in fact social constructs, just like race. But just because something is a social construct doesn't mean it isn't a thing. The geographical borders of nations are social constructs, but unlike race, society agrees on their meaning and purpose. We know what we mean when we're talking about them. So it's not incoherent to say you feel like a certain gender. Your gender doesn't change based on the context. Your race is not determined by how you feel. Your gender is. And all that said, there is evidence that shows that gender is in fact biologically significant. The fact that your brain is involved should clue you into this. For example, it's been suggested that the hormone levels in the brain during the fetal stages of human development affect your gender identity later in life. With race though, there's nothing like that. Now obviously genetics influence your skin color and other physical characteristics, but as I attempted to explain before, that really doesn't define your race, because your race can change depending on the context. So yeah, basically race isn't a thing, gender is. I guess the video could have been a lot shorter. Now, even though race isn't really a fixed, definable thing, people still use it to marginalize and diminish people by arbitrarily assigning certain characteristics or values to certain looks or skin colors. So even though race is not really a thing, it's still important to acknowledge. So for a white lady to just one day decide that she's black, that's a slap in the face to all the people who've lived the black experience without choosing to do so. It implies that race is a costume you can take off and put back on, or a lifestyle choice, which is just really rude to all the people who have have suffered because of their race. Now, as you can tell, I'm giving Rachel Dolezal the benefit of the doubt just for the purposes of this video. In reality, she literally lied about her background and heritage and used that lie to advance her status and career. That's completely different than being transgender, and all the people that are comparing the two things are just being obnoxious. But for this video, let's just assume that she does identify as transracial. I've actually heard of this transracial thing before. Some people call it trans-ethnic, but I just thought that was weird teenagers on Tumblr. But now the ideas hit the mainstream and people are asking questions about it. In America, Dolezal can be perceived as a black person, but if at any point she decides to get rid of the black face and the curls, she goes back to being white. Not everybody has that luxury. It doesn't matter how she feels. According to the cops and the employers and the loan officers and the store owners, she'll be white. On the other hand, when Caitlyn Jenner takes off her high heels and her dress, she's still a woman. She's not living out some fantasy or putting on a costume. She's not appropriating someone else's oppression. She's not misleading anybody or misrepresenting her heritage. She's expressing her gender identity, which she can do because gender is a thing, and your gender not matching your sex is also a thing, both socially and scientifically. Being transracial is not. That's just me though. But I want to know what you think. Drop a comment. I want to go ahead and give a shout out to all of the new subscribers. How you doing? If you enjoyed the video, please press the thumbs up button and subscribe if you like my hair. Problem is, a lot of us have gotten to the point where anytime we focus on a specific issue or celebrate a specific accomplishment, that somehow means we're ignoring all of the others. That's not how it works. First of all, there's just too much shit going on for every single person to put equal amounts of focus into every single thing at all times. That's just not possible.